Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, have no fear, your favorite light-skinned man is here. And in today's video, we are reacting to 4 most disturbing Reddit accounts, man. I ain't gonna lie, man. It can get pretty wicked on that Reddit forums, man. You know, you get yourself in a rabbit hole. You think you're joking and playing the whole time you're reading some real life situation with real life crap going on. You know? But with that being said, enough let's get into these stories, man.
Rather concerning post was uploaded to Reddit titled, "Found Cry for Help on Reddit from Thai Factory Worker." This post was referring to the comments left by a user named FujiTagaikin001 on seemingly random threads. There were 44 comments in total, with the first one appearing on r/promos on February 22nd, 2017. And with a single exception, all contained the same words. "I face too serious problem of human rights at FujiTagaikin, Thailand. Please help me." Searching for FujiTagaikin, Thailand on Google leads to a factory of the same name. And while the factory is located in Thailand, the company that oversees its operations is Japanese. So, from the looks of things, these comments were likely pleas for help from someone who had to work in horrible conditions at this factory, possibly even against their will. Which sounds a bit absurd at first, but is actually quite plausible. You see, Thailand has a major modern-day slavery problem, primarily in its fishing industry, but can also extend to other industries as well, with over 400,000 people being forced to work for little to no compensation. Additionally, Japan is also notorious for what's known as its black companies, which force employees into exploitative, sweatshop-like environments with unpaid overtime and harsh working conditions.
Damn.
Given these issues, it's not unreasonable to imagine a Japanese worker getting stuck working at a factory in Thailand with no escape in sight, and all they were able to do is beg for help on the internet. They were likely not proficient in English, which would explain the grammar mistakes. Also, the vast majority of comments they left were on the most mainstream subreddits, like pics, GIFs, space, gaming, and some others, suggesting they likely weren't familiar with Reddit either and might have just clicked on the top subreddits they came across and commented on the first post they saw. However, this is where this theory starts breaking down. Because despite many people offering advice and trying to help, FujiTagaikin001 never responded, neither in the comments nor in DMs. This led many to believe that these comments were nothing more than spam from a bot.
But it could be, again, because the fact that he might not be able to read it, though. You know what I mean? But then he could also put it in translator. Damn, I don't know. That's a tricky one.
Which obviously isn't an uncommon sight on social platforms like Reddit. However, many argue that explanation doesn't hold much weight here, mainly because in one instance, FujiTagaikin001 posted the comment twice on the same thread, something they hadn't done in any post before or since. A bot would almost never make such a mistake, suggesting it might have been human error. On top of that, while 44 comments are a lot for a person, they are a tiny amount for spam bots that can post hundreds, if not thousands of comments in a matter of seconds. Not to mention the fact that FujiTagaikin001's comments were posted over the span of 4 days, with seemingly random intervals between each comment. Put simply, these comments were almost certainly posted by a person. So, what's really going on here? Were these comments really cries for help from someone stuck in an unfortunate, exploitative situation? Well, it's hard to say. From what I was able to find on FujiTagaikin, there doesn't seem to be any indications of shady activity going on behind the scenes. After FujiTagaikin001's story caught some attention, several people reported the company to organizations like Amnesty International. But the company is still operational to this day, and I didn't find any news coverage of anything bad being discovered at their factory in Thailand. It does have a few dozen negative reviews on Google, but almost all of them were
2.1? Jesus Christ. Damn.
posted after FujiTagaikin001's comment became popular on Reddit.
Okay.
One possible theory is that these comments were posted by a troll or a competitor with the express goal of tarnishing FujiTagaikin's reputation. However, there's currently no evidence that supports or contradicts this theory. The most likely explanation that I was able to come up with stems from the only comment FujiTagaikin001 made that strayed from the usual pattern. Translated into English, it reads, "FujiTagaikin, I'm being subjected to power harassment in Thailand. The power harassment mentioned in this comment is a specific Japanese term used to describe workplace bullying, usually by a superior. And while it is bad, it's not as extreme as the slavery situation many on the internet assumed it to be. Here's what I believe might have happened. A Japanese employee working at Fuji Tagaiken's tie factory was likely getting harassed by one of their superiors. Frustrated with their situation, they turned to the internet for help.
Right.
But since they weren't fluent in English, they used a tool like Google Translate, which unfortunately made their comment sound far more serious than intended.
Yeah.
Now, this is still nothing more than an educated guess. There are still many questions that remain unanswered, like why did they choose to spam it across largely unrelated subreddits? Or why did they stop commenting after 4 days? People on Reddit also discovered another one of their accounts named help001001 with similar comments, but that didn't provide any useful clues either, leaving the true intentions of Reddit user Fuji Tagaiken 001 a mystery to this day. On October 27, 2019, a newly created Reddit account named Snapped Fingers made a post on r/advice looking for help with his deteriorating mental condition, stating, "Seeing and hearing things that aren't there. Lately I have been seeing and hearing things that aren't there even more than normal. Most of the time it's small things like seeing spiders on me in my peripheral vision, only to look at them and
Hell no! Boy, hell no! The way I would've hit the music. Boy, if I saw a spider on me, boy, man, y'all thought Ja Morant had a crazy verb? Man, the way I would've flew, bro. Y'all don't think you know.
they disappear. Other times when I'm in bed, this thing about the thickness of a big fist pops up like a big snake on the side of my bed and looks at me only to dart back down out of sight. Whenever I investigate, nothing is there. Rarely, there's full-body visual hallucinations. The last one was from a couple years ago when I was taking out the garbage. The silhouette of a child crunched down on all fours charged me only to disappear when I looked at it. And before that, there was a large, fleshy, naked, featureless figure slowly walking on all fours in the room down the hall, approximately the average size of a man. The OP then went on to describe how he'd had similar audio-visual hallucinations since he was a child, and how the situation was getting worse as of late. Unfortunately, he didn't seem to have anyone in his life he could rely on. According to the OP, his relatives dismissed his condition as something supernatural, and his friends, quote, kicked him to the curb, suggesting he might have had a falling out with them. The OP also described his reasoning for not getting a medical diagnosis, as to him it felt like the doctors were treating him like a science experiment. This post alone painted Snapped Fingers as a deeply troubled person who was likely suffering from severe schizophrenia and possibly other mental illnesses as well. However, this was just the beginning of the deeply disturbing spiral he would eventually descend into. Starting from his very next post on r/confessions titled, "Saw someone get run over by a train and didn't feel anything." Things drifted from mental hallucinations to physical harm from that point on, with Snapped Fingers asking, "If I bite off my own finger, could it be reattached or attached somewhere else?"
How do you bite off a finger? Like, I feel like, isn't there like something in your brain that like stops you from like injuring yourself to that point? Not like with not with like an object or something like that, but like with your physical body. Like, wouldn't something in your brain, like if I tried to bite my finger off, something stop me from doing that?
The OP also shared a story of a painful experience he had to go through because of his condition, reading, "In 2008, I stuck a power drill into my arm. Sometime back in 2008, I was putting together a shelf when this large black mass came out of nowhere and engulfed my unoccupied arm. I didn't see it till it was right up on me. It scared me so badly, and it was coming up from my arm for my face. So I started jamming the drill into it. On the second strike, I hit my arm and the hallucination dissipated." Concerned users once again urged the OP to seek medical help, but he declined it once again, stating that he didn't want to end up in a mental asylum or become an experiment for doctors again. However, while he rejected most of the normal advice under this post, the one comment he agreed with suggested a fairly absurd explanation for OP's situation, suggesting that maybe the OP could see into another dimension. This was odd considering his earlier reservations about the clearly untrue supernatural beliefs of his relatives. But for some unknown reason, this one comment struck a chord with him, resulting in him spiraling out of control and eventually adopting the belief that his hallucinations were caused by some interdimensional beings. Much of this new belief was fueled by equally mentally ill or outright delusional individuals he befriended on platforms like Discord. But in Snapped Fingers' broken, mentally ill mind, he'd finally found the truth. So he began inquiring about how to deal with these so-called interdimensional beings, what was the best way to banish them, and what he had to sacrifice to make these beings leave him alone.
Yeah, man, get that man some help, man. That brother clearly needs it, man. I hope this person figures out what they need to figure out, bro. Because yeah, bro, it's not.
Now, it's unclear if people giving him these ideas genuinely believed what they were saying, or if they were just trolls who were taking advantage of OP's mental illness to see how far they could push him. Regardless of their intentions, however, the end result was the spiraling of a vulnerable young man who now believed that there were, quote, interdimensional hell portals in the Paris catacombs, and that his duty was to close said portals. He even started denying having schizophrenia in favor of this false belief. To make matters worse, Snapped Fingers actually ended up traveling to Paris in May of 2020 to achieve his newfound goal, and apparently stole a car to do so. On the 5th of May, he made one final post before entering the catacombs, stating, "We'll be entering the catacombs in a few hours-ish." Before, someone had asked about a time frame for when I'll post an update, and while I don't know how big the catacombs are, my guess is maybe a day or two before my return with videos. I've taken some test footage while I was held up inside a dumpster the other night, and the quality honestly isn't that great, but it's alright. To make up for the quality of the video, I will take more footage while I'm down there. However, the update never came, leading many to believe that the OP had likely gotten lost and passed away from exhaustion or dehydration inside the catacombs. For those who don't know, the Paris catacombs stretch over 186 miles or 300 kilometers.
He definitely passed on those caves, bro. For sure, there's no way he made that.
Most of which is completely unexplored. Entering these unknown sections is pretty much a death sentence for even experts on the location, let alone a complete rookie like the OP. But to everyone's surprise, Snapped Fingers actually made a comeback almost 2 years later in May of 2022.
Nigga, what? Y'all think he pump faked us on the cave thing, or y'all think he was playing, or for real about that?
It seemed he somehow successfully found his way into the catacombs, explored them for a while, and then managed to find his way back. He made a post admitting that there were no portals or anything of that nature in there, followed by a final post meant to give everyone invested in his story some closure. And while he didn't go into details of what happened after he entered the catacombs, he did seem to be on the right path, stating, "Without going into much detail, I am not dead, and even though things are not perfect, I am always improving despite minor hiccups here and there. But as I said before, I intend to distance myself from this and will take the necessary steps to achieve that in order to return to normality." His account, which is now deleted, stood as a disturbing showcase of the delusions of a mentally ill man that almost led him to his own death in the Paris catacombs. Hopefully he was able to get the help he needed and is doing much better in life.
Exactly, man. Hopefully, he got what he needed to get figured out.
April Bever was a 45-year-old woman who lived in the city of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma with her husband, 45-year-old David Bever, and their 7 children. April was the primary caretaker of her family, as well as the teacher for her homeschooled children. In addition to this, she also liked browsing Reddit, where she went by the name of Aoki Mom. Given her otherwise busy lifestyle, Reddit was one place where she could talk to other like-minded people and make new connections, though many of her posts revolved around the love she had for her children. On a post discussing the financial benefits of not having any kids, April wrote, "I have 7 children and we have always lived on one income and have never had any government assistance or needed it. We have a 4,700 square foot house, 2 newer cars, and my kids do not do without. There are childless people that do not
Man, shout out her, man. She gets that pay, got a good head on her shoulders, man.
Have this. Life is about making good job or income choices and then making the best money choices based on your income. I would never give up having any of my children so I could have more money. They are amazing people and the world would benefit by having them in it. And nothing I could buy or invest in could compare to giving a person a chance to have a life." Put simply, there was nothing April treasured more than her family. Sadly, her time with this family was cut short in 2015, in what would later be remembered as one of the greatest tragedies of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. On July 22, 2015, the Broken Arrow Police Department received a 911 call from 12-year-old Daniel Bever, April and David's 3rd son.
Broken Arrow 911. Hello?
Hi.
Hi, where are you at?
Ocala, Oklahoma 7411.
What address?
709 Magnolia Court.
Okay. Are you the only one there?
No, my brother's attacking my family.
Your dad is attacking your family?
No, my brother. He has a 9-day feeling.
The call ended shortly after, and any subsequent attempts from the police to contact the family were unsuccessful. Officers rushed to the scene as quickly as they could. When they reached the Bever house, the front door was locked, so they forced their way in. However, nothing could have prepared them for the massacre they were about to witness on the other side of that door. The first person officers found was 13-year-old Crystal lying in the hallway in a pool of her own blood.
Damn.
She'd been stabbed multiple times, including a slash across her throat.
Damn.
Despite her injuries, however, she was conscious and managed to tell the officers that her two older brothers, 18-year-old Robert and 16-year-old Michael, were the ones responsible for everything. Further inside the home, officers found the remains of the rest of the family, all with dozens of stab wounds. April was in especially rough shape, with a later autopsy report confirming over 48 wounds on her body. The only one left on—
Nigga, why? Bro, you had a good mother that took care of y'all. Like, bro, is there something we're missing? Like, what did she do to, what did your family do to deserve this, bro? That's why you gotta get your children mental health help, man, because clearly their shit was fucked.
Unharmed was the youngest, 2-year-old Autumn. However, Robert and Michael were nowhere to be seen. Fortunately, investigators were quick to determine that they might have escaped from the back door, and it wasn't long before the two were located and subsequently arrested, hiding in the woods behind their home. When asked about it, Robert said that he was proud of what he had done.
Yeah, you
Later
can
interrogation—
see on this nigga's face that he's clearly satisfied with what he did. The other one looks like he has a little bit more regret.
also revealed their motive, which boiled down to imitating the actions of other mass murderers they had read about on the internet.
See? And this is why you gotta watch the stuff that your kids are watching, bro, because you don't know what they're watching, who they're being influenced by. Because, you know what I'm saying, one thing as a parent, you could be sleep, mind your business, next thing you know, your child comes in and he just takes your life. You know what I'm saying? That's why I said when I have a kid, bro, my kid's not getting a phone till like 13, 14, and I'm making sure to instill what the difference between right or wrong and stuff like that. Because, bro, what?
They wanted to start with their own family and then leave a trail of blood across many states. Fortunately, they were caught before they could execute this plan completely. They stood trial multiple times.
The other one looks like he had more regret about it. This one, yeah, he looks like a lot. He looks like he could have been saved. Alright, let me back up a little bit. He looked like he might have been saved. This one, yeah, he looks like he's a lost cause, bro. He looks like, yeah, he was just done.
Before they could execute this plan completely. They stood trial multiple times over the next few years and were found guilty on the charges filed against them. Michael was sentenced to 5 consecutive life sentences, while Robert was given 9 for being the primary mastermind behind the crime. Aoki Mom's Reddit account and subsequent posts are now left abandoned, seen in a much more disturbing light following the massacre that took place over a decade earlier. On the 7th of August 2015, Reddit user Is There Life After Lyme made a post in the Lyme disease subreddit recounting her terrible experience with the ailment, writing, "Lyme disease has ruined my life. I was diagnosed by an LLMD last year with congenital Lyme disease, as well as several co-infections after several years of suffering with horrible brain fog, depression, vision problems, and memory loss. I was so happy to finally get a diagnosis. Since then, I have been getting treated, but I have not gotten any better at all. I am a single working mother, and between visits to my LLMD and the formulas I buy from her and paying for things for my child, I am struggling to stay afloat. I do not have health insurance, and it's getting to the point where I'm looking into food stamps. My LLMD tells me that I will get worse if I stop the treatments now because the bacteria are smart. There are no other LLMDs in my area, so I can't go for a second opinion, and it's useless to go to a traditional doctor where I'll just be laughed at. I feel like I've tried everything and nothing has worked. I've even begun to see signs of congenital Lyme disease in my 5-year-old daughter. The hostility, the impulsiveness, the inability to concentrate. I simply can't afford to get her treated for Lyme. I've even asked myself if I should give her up for adoption and if I'm fit to be a mother with my mind the way it is. I just don't know what to do. Lyme disease has ruined my life. It ended my first marriage and estranged me from my ex. I guess my main question is, where do I go from here? What do I do if I'm not getting better? How could I pay for treatment without going broke and having to apply for food stamps? And if all this wasn't bad enough, in a comment under this post, she also revealed that her LLMD was also strictly against antibiotics and only prescribed herbal formulas. Not only were these expensive herbal treatments largely ineffective in treating the core issue, they were actively harming her, with one of these prescriptions causing hallucinations and psychosis, as well as physical symptoms like an upset stomach. From what she revealed in this post, OP's life seemed truly hopeless. However, something about her story didn't feel right. The symptoms she described weren't in line with the most common symptoms of Lyme disease. More importantly, she herself admitted that all of her Lyme disease tests were actually negative, and that her entire diagnosis, and by extension treatment, was based on a single test that came back inconclusive. Either her LLMD was taking advantage of her, or she was lying about her life to gain sympathy from other Redditors. In either case, something was very wrong. Despite the growing skepticism, however, Is There Life After Lyme kept posting about Lyme disease and other related subjects. But then, in September 21st, she made a post that shed further light on her condition, more specifically how it related to her deteriorating mental state. In it, she recounted a psychotic episode she experienced at the grocery store earlier that week, where voices were screaming at her to buy specific things or they would hurt her. Most users who saw the post urged her to seek professional help, which would have likely helped her get her life in order. Surprisingly, she agreed with these suggestions, promised to admit herself into a psych ward, and stopped posting entirely. Unfortunately, by the time she returned in 2016, her mental state had somehow gotten significantly worse. She started rambling about random conspiracy theories relating to everything from the child-free subreddit to the Pizzagate conspiracy and how it all relates to Lyme disease. Is There Life After Lyme had officially gone off the deep end, and her situation was getting worse with each passing day. By 2018, her posts had become completely unreadable. These nonsensical posts were occasionally interrupted by her disturbing cries for help as well, but she didn't respond coherently to anyone who reached out to her, which was extremely concerning for many. This went on till February 2019, after which she completely disappeared from the internet, leaving many to wonder what actually happened to her. However, some Reddit users weren't concerned at all, since in their eyes, the entire Is There Life After Lyme account was nothing more than a clever hoax. And it's easy to see why. There were quite a few inconsistencies in her posting habits that hinted at the whole thing being fake. For instance, if she'd truly become incapable of stringing together a single coherent sentence, how was she able to operate a computer or phone enough to make these posts in the first place? Additionally, she also started making parts of her posts in other languages. But when people translated these other languages, they were generally written without any errors, even though the English portion of the same post was completely incomprehensible. However, before people were able to reach a conclusion about whether it was all real or not, someone claiming to be her sister logged into her account and told others she'd been hospitalized after an incident. If we assume the whole thing was fake from the start, it's possible the person behind the account noticed the skepticism and introduced the sister character to wrap up the story. On the other hand, if everything about Is There Life After Lyme was genuine, this remains as one of the most haunting cases of mental deterioration archived on the internet.
Anyways, with that being said, man, y'all let me know what y'all think which of these was the most disturbing story. Damn, I can't talk. Yeah. And until next time, don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate y'all if y'all would do that, man. And until next time, I'll catch y'all boys later, man. Peace.